Okay, hi everyone, Daryl here. I'm just going to give this update on how the bar exams went. I have quite a number of juniors which asked me how I coped with the bar exam. Okay, so for starters, right, I've not received my results yet. The exam was somewhere at the beginning of June. It lasted till about I think slightly past the middle of June 2025. Currently is the start of August, and I think we will be receiving our results in September. We had 8 papers. In total, there were 8 examinations. It spanned over 2 weeks. I did a blog post on this, but generally what I will say is that it was quite doable in a sense that you didn't have to go too deep into the subjects, and that's something that I'll touch on. So generally people ask me like, how do you cope with the bar exams? I think that if you can cope with law school, you should be able to cope with the bar exams. The only thing that I think was uncomfortable for me was that it was 8 exams almost back to back. And when I mean back to back, I mean for the first week it was, if I did not remember wrongly, it was Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Then for the following week, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. And the fact that it was back to back, unlike in law school, it was uncomfortable for me was because I would like to have maybe a day in between whereby I could revise and sort of recover from the examination from the previous day. But if you are from SUSS School of Law, and I can only speak because I'm from SUSS School of Law, I think that generally you would be able to cope with the bar exams generally quite well. Okay, number one, because most of the bar examinations are MCQ based, which means that you have 60 MCQ questions and you have to complete these 60 MCQ questions within 2 hours. I did not have a problem with time management when it came to MCQ questions. I only had issues with time management for one of the written papers, which was the private family and criminal practice, private client practice, which was the paper on family and criminal law. And if you're from SUSS School of Law, right, you would actually have covered all of the topics that that you will be tested on in the bar examinations. So for criminal law, it's procedure based. That means that you are looking at the criminal procedure code more than whether elements of a crime are made out. So if you in SUSS School of Law, we had this module called Law 311, if I'm not wrong, and that covered criminal procedure. The criminal procedure that was covered in the SUSS School of Law is actually more in-depth than the one that was covered in the bar examinations. And also there was family law. The family law that we cover in the SUSS School of Law is a lot more comprehensive than the bar examinations, and this is a running theme. So number one, right, the tip to surviving the bar examinations, I made the mistake myself, is not to go too deep into certain subjects. The bar examinations, the topics are quite broad, which means that you will study a wide variety of topics. But in terms of going deep into the subject, it is not going too deep into the subject, which means that, like for example, if you go, you do read up on family law, and then you realize that the family law that is covered in the SUSS School of Law is about, I would say maybe minimally at least 4 to 5 times more in-depth than what was covered in the bar examinations. I have no idea why they structured it that way, but I think that the bar examinations are there to test your general knowledge of the law, which meant that actually on certain topics, especially for commercial topics, I tended to go down this rabbit hole of researching on certain topics or certain cases, and that's not necessary because the bar examinations were quite brief, which means that If you look at the notes and if you can cover the notes, I think you would survive the bar examinations. And there's a disclaimer, I have not gotten my results yet. So this set of advice that I'm giving you is somebody who has completed the bar examinations, the 8 papers, but has not gotten his results from the 8 papers. So number one, right, go broad, not deep. Okay, don't go deep into the subject. Just cover what is required in the notes, and that would, I think, suffice to allow you to answer most of the questions that are there. Okay, then second tip, right, would be to pass. Okay, just to pass. My goal is to pass, not to ace the bar examinations. Okay, to pass, right, okay, and I've got good reason just to focus on passing because I was really extremely busy during the bar examinations. Work was pretty hectic, okay. You can work during the bar examinations, you don't have to write into SILE, okay. You can actually work while doing the bar course and the bar examinations. And that was for my time. I don't know about your time, okay, but I think it should be the same. Okay, so during the bar examinations or bar course, I was quite busy, so my goal was just to pass all 8 papers in one sitting. And a lot of times, right, there are certain topics which are optional. And then I got freaked out because when I watched the lectures, right, some of the lecturers said we might test the optional topics, okay, because that's how they want to differentiate whether the student knows the topic or doesn't know the topic, and then they wanted to differentiate the distinction students, you see. For me personally, right, I wasn't going for distinction, so I have no idea why I went to read the optional topics, okay. For general knowledge, that's good, but if you want to pass the bar examinations, right, most of the things that were highlighted as optional did not come out. Very seldom, very little of what was optional was actually tested in the bar examinations. So if you're short on time, right, please don't waste time on the optional topics. I would rather you cover the other subjects ahead of time. Okay, and the next tip, right, will be to at least look at all the notes, right, once before the bar examinations, before you take the bar examinations or before your final revision for your bar examinations. I didn't, because I left some topics to the end. So because the bar examinations is one after another, right, the later subjects caught up with me. And what I mean is that, so for the first few papers, I was generally quite well prepared, which meant that I covered what I needed to cover. And then the following week, right, when there were 5 papers, right, by the time it was Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, right, I was actually short on time. So when I went back from my Tuesday paper, in preparation for the Wednesday paper, I didn't sleep much because I needed to cover things that I've never seen in my life before. Okay, and that's one of the things I need to highlight to you guys. So like, I couldn't attend the classes, but I was quite behind time in catching up with the lectures. When I was in SUSS School of Law, right, because I was aiming for a certain grade, I made it a point that every single lecture, right, I would do my readings ahead of time. Then I go to class, right, so if the lecturer asked me questions, I could answer. But in this case, right, a lot of times because of work, I was unable to do my readings ahead of time, and that actually was to my detriment because I sort of let it snowball to a point where I was unable to catch up, especially for the last 3 papers. So the last 3 papers, right, I have some portions of the last 3 papers where I actually studied the day before. Okay, so my take would be you would need to go through everything once before you do your final revision, which means that I think at least 1 month before the bar examinations, you should have read all the readings and all the notes already. Okay, and then my next tip, right, is actually counterintuitive to what I just said. Okay, because if you study too early, right, you can't really remember because it's so broad. Okay, it's not like when in School of Law, right, then you have 2 subjects. Then if you study in that, you can you wouldn't be too far behind when examinations came. But in this case, right, because there are so many topics, one paper, right, can cover like 4 subjects. Another paper can cover 4 5 subjects. So in total, right, I think we are covering like 20 or 30 subjects over 8 papers. So it's quite impossible for you to remember everything, because Admiralty law will not be related to, let's say, family law, and then family law will not be related to maybe personal accident, and then maybe criminal law might not be relatable to wills and probate. And that creates a huge confusion, because if you study too early, right, I realized that I actually looked at the notes before the bar course started. So I glanced through the notes. I thought like, oh, I want to be a model student here, and then I looked through everything beforehand. And then actually, right, honestly, I can't remember that I looked through this really, because I made some markings on the notes, right, and by the time I saw it just before the bar examinations, I cannot remember anything. So one thing is that don't start too early, which is counterintuitive to what I just said, the previous point, which is don't start too late. I think that if you mark for about a month, you should be able to get through the bar exam. Okay, but if you start too early, you get your notes from your friends and then you say, okay, I want to start really, really early, because it's so broad, right? I don't think you are able to stomach all 20 plus 30 subjects. Okay, and finally, right, the bar examinations are held in the afternoon, which means that there is always a temptation that you study overnight, then after that you sleep, and then after that you try to wake up maybe 10, 11, 12 noon, then you make your way down to the SIM campus, which is where the bar examinations are held, and then after that you try to perform your best during these 2 hours. Okay, so during these 2 hours, right, I think I made a mistake for the final few papers, because I was actually quite exhausted. So what I did, right, was that I marked until maybe like 5, 6 a.m. Then after I slept for a few hours, and then after I woke up at like 11 plus, then I made my way down to SIM, I think about 2 plus. I think 2:30 was the exam, so I made down by 1 plus, then 2:30 to 4:30 was the exam. The last three papers were quite bad, because I was quite exhausted. It didn't help that I was actually still working. So on days of my examinations, right, even though I took leave from my office, right, I actually had to go back to office in the morning on some occasions. In fact, I think more than half of the days. So the last 3 papers, right, were really bad, because I was extremely exhausted. So try to get an adequate amount of sleep, because this is not an examination whereby it's one exam, then you have a few days of break, then you have another exam, then a few days of break. So you have to time yourself and pace yourself. I don't think that the bar examinations are as difficult as the examinations in law school, but I think it is tough because of the nature of how the bar examinations are structured, which means that for me at least, my bar examinations had a week whereby there were 5 papers back to back from Monday to Friday, every day from 2:30 to 4:30, and it was extremely exhausting, and that was the main challenge. It wasn't that the questions were prohibitively difficult. Okay, I'm not saying that the bar exams are easy. I'm just saying that because it's back to back, it's quite tough for someone to handle back to back exams every day. Okay, but finally, right, one of the most important advice that I can give to you, right, is time management. So there was one paper, I think it was the second written paper. If I'm not wrong, it was the paper, it was Private Client Practice 1, which is the one on criminal law and family law. So criminal law and family law are together in a written paper. The weightage was that criminal law took up 60% of the weightage and family law took up 40% of the weightage of the marks. And time management is essential, because when you are in law school, you try to state the law and then explain the point in detail, and then try to get a good grade on the point. Try to elaborate as much as possible so that the examiner actually knows what's going on. The problem here is that there were many sub-questions. So even though I think criminal law had only, I think 2 or 3 questions, but it's because it's 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D or something to that effect. And then after that, family law had the same. So in total, right, I think you had to answer like, if you add up all the sub-questions individually, it was about like, I think 13 to 15 questions in total over 2 hours. So essentially, right, each question, right, you could only spend perhaps 4 minutes to 5 minutes per question. Because if it's 15 questions, right, then, if it's 15 questions, you could spend like 8 minutes. So in each question, you could spend maybe about 10 minutes only. And the problem is that you tend to want to elaborate a bit more because you think that, I haven't quite answered the question. But I don't think that's the point, because I don't think anyone can type that fast already. So I think that you have to really manage your time, because there was I was left with so little time that there were a few questions whereby I answered with like just 1 or 2 sentences only. So I don't think I'm going to score on those questions. But for the previous questions, right, I elaborated in depth. So you have to look. You cannot like flip, right, and then you see like, 4 questions only. But it's not 4 questions only. It's not 5 questions only. It's multiple questions. So what you should do is that from what I should have done and what I would have done differently was that I would have taken 100 marks and then I'll divide it over 120 minutes. And then I would allocate the time to each question based on the number of marks that is allocated there. So if let's say the time is up already, right, I have to move on to the next question. And that's something that I think for those people who are taking the bar exams, right, time management is essential. Okay, so in that sense, right, I think the written ones are very important. So if you're taking, especially for private client practice, right, especially for SUSS students, right, our Law 311 and our family law modules, right, cover a lot broader and a lot deeper when it comes to family law and criminal law. But I don't think it's wise to answer the questions like you would in the SUSS School of Law examinations. Okay, so that's all from me. I'm still waiting for my bar exam results. A few things about the channel. So now I've graduated from SUSS School of Law already. There are some people who are asking me, how will this channel pan out? I'm still very involved with people from the SUSS School of Law. Like for example, I still contribute to the law interest group that was recently set up. I'm still involved in some of the sports groups. So I will still most probably play football, join some tournaments, maybe badminton as well for the SUSS School of Law, as long as I can. And then while I'm now still doing my training contract, I won't be caught as a lawyer till I complete my 1-year training contract. So it's effectively, I think I could still represent the school. So I'm still involved in school activities, some school activities, very minimal, but I will still try to interview students and share with everyone on this channel as to how students, my juniors, effectively are coping with school life. So the same set of questions will still happen, but at the same time, I want to grow this channel for my own law practice, my own personal law practice, in the sense that I would like to share my growth as a young lawyer. I'm not young personally, I'm in my 40s and like I'm 44. So like I would like to share my experience doing my training contract. I would like to share my experience developing in the practice of law. So that is where this channel will be heading. Okay, so I hope that answered most of the questions I've gotten from friends and juniors asking about how to cope with the bar course. I'm not passed yet. Fingers crossed I will pass the bar exam on my first try. I will share with you guys my results. Okay, and yeah, so that's all from me. Do like and subscribe. Do like this video if you found it interesting, and do subscribe to the Just Follow Law YouTube channel. Okay, so see you guys. Bye.